On today's show, I am catching you up with what has been happening in the country and the continent. And because it's Women's Month, I want to review and reflect on how the story behind Women's Month has been told by both the media and the politicians. So stay tuned. Hello and welcome to yet another episode of the FNDRY LAB, where ideas become power and power becomes the engine for African transformation. If I told you how much it means to me every time that you come by this channel and just watch our videos, you would not believe me, but I'm going to tell you anyway. It means a lot to me and I appreciate it, friend. I don't know if you guys are aware, but the country is burning and some of us are not even aware. So hopefully for those that are watching and you weren't aware, hopefully you will be aware now that the country is burning and it's all happening in Johannesburg. Open chats, JMPD, Treasury, political drama, all that stuff. It's all happening. There's no place as busy as Joburg right now. So there's three things happening in Johannesburg that I want to focus on that are important, and that is Treasury pressure. National Treasury has come out saying that the metropolitan, the city of Johannesburg, they've been spending money on things that Treasury classifies as wasteful spending. So now the ultimatum is that fix this wasteful spending or else we are no longer going to fund you. Imagine now an entire city as important as Johannesburg, because Johannesburg is very important. And when I say it's important, think Johannesburg Stock Exchange, think central business hub, So that's what I mean when I say it's very important. It forms a very important part of South Africa. So for all these things to be happening, it's not good, especially 3 months ahead of the G20 that is being hosted here in South Africa, in Johannesburg. So Johannesburg is currently fixing a lot of stuff right now. They are fixing roads, they are fixing lights, they are fixing everything in order when these heads of states from these different countries, when they come through, they should be seeing a country that is well run. So currently, as it stands, it is not looking good. Now Treasury comes in and throws that spanner in the works. So there's a lot happening in Johannesburg, and then there's political drama. ANC and EFF coalitions are deepening, and there's a possible instability in council leadership. So we all know that these coalitions, they have not been working, especially in Johannesburg. There's been a number of coalitions in the city of Johannesburg, and all of them have failed. There is no coalition that has stood in Johannesburg. And within the past, 2-3 years, how many mayors has the city of Johannesburg had? So that is a call for concern. That is concerning, So that is just one of the many things that is happening in Johannesburg right now. And then the DA has come up saying that JMPD has been running a revenue scheme that is exploiting motorists. So internal whistleblowers have revealed that there's an illegal quota system for traffic fines. Citizens are being used as cash cows to meet budget shortfalls. So what JMPD is doing is that they are setting up roadblocks. Each and every officer has been given a quota or a target. But we need 7K a day that you need to bring in. Understand? So now you find that sometimes citizens are just being good, law-abiding citizens. They are not breaking any rules. They are just doing what they are supposed to be doing on the road. So now you approach this roadblock with this officer that needs to bring in 7K at the end of the day. Obviously, that guy is he's not going to let the things that he normally lets slide. He's not going to let it slide this time, because he's also feeling pressure from, his employer. Yeah. So now I'm trying to understand, how did we get to this point this was and this pendula, like how did we get here? And when I try to come up with answers to this thing, is it goes back to the treasury pressure. I imagine that that thing has been ongoing. There's been countless meetings, countless boardroom meetings and whatnots that has been held in trying to address this problem of wasteful expenditure. So now I imagine that the city of Johannesburg, some bright mind was like, yo, we have JMPD that could bring in the money that we need to continue wasting. So I imagine that happened, and then some guy was like, okay, yeah, sure, let's do this, and then somebody put a stamp of approval. So that's how we find ourselves now. So I think it was just a way to try to get out of a problem by putting themselves in another problem. On other news, we have US tariffs, and yeah, SA and Lesotho are being, I feel like that was a drastic switch from talking about Johannesburg to now the US. But yeah, we have US tariffs on SA and Lesotho, and a bit of context now when it comes to these tariffs, because if you are one that follows current affairs and what is happening in the country and in the world, then you will know that Trump introduced tariffs earlier on in the year, and then they died down a bit. And then recently, if you will recall, Kwanaze held his press briefing while President Cyril Ramaphosa was out of the country. I don't know where they were, but it was at a BRICS meeting. So now the BRICS alignment is growing and the US is not liking it. And now the only economic weapon that Trump has right now is these tariffs, because a lot of countries do business with the US. So he has all the cards, he has the leverage. But now it's a matter of how do these countries move on, because now it's like being in a relationship with, okay, I let me not use a relationship as my example, but you are essentially what I'm trying to say, you are in a relationship with someone that is sort of like, is on and off. You never know what to expect with this person. So for me personally, I don't know about you, what you would do in that situation. But me, I start keeping my options open. Obviously, I'd have a conversation with this person regarding, yo, what's up with this, And if nothing is changing, then I'm going to spread my wings. I'm going to start considering other options. So now, with all the countries that have been hit hard by these US tariffs, a whopping 30%, So I feel like these countries now, SA, China, all of them that have been targeted by the US with these tariffs, they should start considering other options. And BRICS is one option, and various others that these countries need to start exploring. But now, on the way it gets bad is that the US knows that it holds the cards, especially now with the US aid. We are seeing the result of that US aid being cut. People are not getting their HIV treatment, because the US aid helped in that. So now another thing that is happening is countries have now, their lifeline has been cut. So now they are stuck in a moment where, what are we going to do? Because for the longest of time, we have depended on this country, but now they've done a full 180 saying, we are good. We are focusing on us. We are putting Americans first, because that's essentially the entire goal behind this US tariffs. Trump is simply, in his mind, he's putting Americans first and making America great again. So he knows that if these countries now, if it becomes expensive to trade with the US, then the US doesn't need much from anyone besides selling the products. But in terms of exports, then sure, we are cooked there, because the auto is it automobile, but the auto industry, the car assembly, that is being hit hard. Gqeberha is in some hot water, because most of the car assemblies are there in Gqeberha and the likes of KZN, if I'm not mistaken. But now there's also AGOA, which is the African Growth and Opportunity Act. Those benefits are also hanging by a thread. They are also being threatened by the US tariffs. And then Lesotho, I extend my deepest sympathies, because Lesotho, I don't know what the economy looks like there, but I think that for the longest of time, they've traded with the US when it comes to textiles, especially Levi Strauss and jeans. I think Lesotho exports jeans or material for jeans, or whatever the terminology is in that field. They export those to the US. So now that has gotten 30% more expensive to send out those products to the US. Now, with this US tariffs thing, is it's sort of like a double-edged sword that the US is also falling on, and it's hurting American business, because American businesses are planted across the world. Well, some of them. So I think in South Africa alone, we have over 500 to 600 businesses that are operating here in South Africa. So now, obviously, this is also affecting them. Hence, I say it's a double-edged sword of sort. But these are all stories that I want to follow over the month of August and see where things are going to take us. And while I was still preparing for this episode, Open Chats comes in with a whole lot of drama and had the country in an uproar, essentially. Just that whole colored black dynamic that is now being threatened, and it's always that black on black hate. I can't really call it black on black hate, because coloreds also, they have gone and sort of like separated themselves from black. They've just gone and said, no, we are colored. And they really go, and they understand their history. I'll give them that. So whenever you speak with the colored people that have been vocal about this whole Open Chats derogatory statements that they've made, they've gone and just went back, just educating the audience about colored people. But hands off coloreds. Ek is self 'n Kaapenaar, so coloreds, hulle het 'n spesiale plek in my hart. So asseblief tog, ons losie coloreds, laat ons net mekaar los, man. Hoekom moet ons beklei tussen mekaar? It's not necessary. That's all the Afrikaans I But it's not necessary. Why can't we just exist and just love each other and just build each other? Anyway, it's August and it's Women's Month. In case you haven't clocked it, the year is 1956, 9 August. 20,000 women are marching to the union buildings to protest against past laws, laying the foundation then of Women's Day. So every year now, the media has these heartfelt tributes to these Mbogodos of 1956. Brands will also hop on the wave with women empowering messages. But I'm afraid that the image that is painted of women in these tributes no longer reflects the image of women today. Let me explain. More than remembering the woman of 1956, Women's Day is meant to be a reminder of the important contributions women make to society. When we talk about the woman of 1956, we are talking about a line of remarkable women. I'm talking about the likes of Sophia Williams-De Bruyn. I'm talking about Helen Joseph. I'm talking about Rahima Moosa. I'm talking about, who else was there? I'm talking about Helen. I mentioned Helen Joseph. I mentioned Lillian Ngoyi, Ruth Mompati, and countless others. Now, these are women who embodied the principle of power is not given, it is taken. And the way that they went about it was through means of justice and virtue, not a long list of indoda musts. Let that register. We are cooking today. However, as much as I can sit here and cook women, I will also stand in defense of women in saying that we have all failed as the inhabitants of Azania. And instead of standing on the shoulders of giants our land has produced, we have become mere shadows of them, where we had our president recently sitting in the Oval Office in front of Donald Trump, the most arrogant person ever, and your only hoped for point of conversion was the name of Nelson Mandela in 2025. That is still the only thing that we can go out to these countries and beat our chest about. Other than that, we have nothing else. Since the death of Nelson Mandela and since Nelson Mandela, we haven't had any remarkable person or any remarkable thing other than winning the World Cup 4 times. Other than that, we haven't had anything in terms of going forward with the struggle, like Aluta Continua. Where did that go? Yeah, so that is my issue right now. That is where we find ourselves. And that fighting spirit that once was in the fight against apartheid, it was never meant to die. It is so unfortunate that we are at a place now where that spirit is dead and is only alive in a select few. And Nakona, that is not enough for the battles that we are facing right now. I think we got comfortable as citizens. Our leaders also got comfortable, and politics became more about self-interests, more about instead of serving the people. Because I'd like to believe that we got comfortable because we thought that the fight is over. But the fight never ended. It just went from the streets to boardrooms. The fight went from being fought with sticks and stones to being fought with policy and business plans. Let that register. So now we find ourselves in a time now where we are looking around trying to figure out who is going to be the one that takes the stand. And I don't know, brings back that spirit. I don't know how we're going to go about doing that. But I am going to place all that burden on our generation today, because it is said that our generation is the most educated. I think it's time we show it. Let's be about it. Let's stand on business. Let's clock that the world needs us. Well, our country needs us. Our continent needs us. Our women need us. Our women, our children. The land needs us, in a nutshell. Because both men and women today in South Africa, we have had great examples of great leadership. So I've mentioned this before. Pick a struggle and build around it. Given that we have had examples of these great leaders, let's extract whatever we can from that and build. Whether you are a lawyer, whether you are a marketer, whether you are a psychologist, whatever you are in whatever field or discipline that you find yourself, pick a struggle and build around it. And if you don't know what to build or what struggle to pick, I did an entire video on this. I can't remember which episode it was, but I'm going to link it there up top. So go over and watch that if you are confused as to where to start. And this podcast also exists to help you start. Hopefully through these conversations, you might have a light bulb moment, and you might think of starting something. That for me will be mission accomplished if I can get you to that point. And also just equipping you with the knowledge that you need. Obviously, for me, I've chosen I've picked a struggle and I'm building around it. And the struggle that I've sort of like chosen is business. Well, business is just one aspect of it, But to be broad, I've chosen economic and social well-being. I want to see a country that works. I want to see people working. I want to see people affording their dream lives, just improving the standard of living. That is what I want to see. That is my fight. So hence, from that episode, I mentioned stuff like, once you choose your fight, focus on that, have eternal vision and just focus on that. It doesn't mean now have no sympathy for anything else, like when they say justice for Mang Mang, It doesn't mean you can't comment on those things, but I mentioned that. I digress, but I just want to make this point. Well, you pick a struggle and you just go after that aggressively. And speaking of aggressive, I'm going to make a statement that is my opinion. Whether you agree with it or not is it's up to you how you take it. But it's nothing. It's nothing drastic. It's not like I'm saying colors are. Anyway, the world will never be run by girls. Never. Not unless they can man up and take it. So I'll close this segment with two questions, and that is, will Women's Day continue to be this nostalgic look back and say nothing about our look forward? And how do we, through justice and virtue, confront the systems that still make it hard for women to thrive today? Because we do want to see our sisters thriving. We do want to see our sisters winning, But me personally, I think that the way that they've been going about it so far, Chief, it's sowing a lot of division and debate that is unnecessary. But anyway, that is a story for another day. So with every episode, I'm trying to get you clued up and hopefully get you to sound smarter at your next prize. So let's open up our Foundry Dictionary, and our word today is BRICS Plus. What is BRICS Plus and what is the point of BRICS Plus? So BRICS Plus is an expanded version of the original BRICS bloc, which consists of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. It has now been extended to, I think now it consists of 10 countries. And I think Egypt is there, Ethiopia is there, the United Arab Emirates or United Emirates Arab, that, as well as Saudi Arabia and Iran. So what you have to understand about BRICS, it exists to shift global power as well as create new trade systems and challenging institutions like the IMF and the World Bank. It essentially is fighting the West. So something interesting about BRICS and how these countries are chosen to be a part of BRICS, each country contributes something. So in this fight against the West, essentially, because that is what they are fighting, and just that control and hold that the West has over the world. And these are institutions like the IMF that controls the money of the world. Like, the IMF has gotten so many African countries in debt, but it's our fault. It's our fault as well. And then there's the World Bank, same thing as well. So now, what I found interesting is that each of these countries, there's something that they are contributing, and it's something that is critical to sovereignty of these countries and independence, because America, the US, is a superpower, and they control so much, they hold so much power. So now BRICS is trying to counter that. So power is all about resources. It's all about the people in there, mostly the resources. Control the resources, you control the world. So now BRICS is trying to take back that power from the US, because a lot of stuff are owned by the US. Even in other countries, you'll find that the US has sole rights of mining whatever resource or minerals that they need out of that country. So that is that is something that needs to be fixed, and BRICS is one of those vehicles for fixing and addressing that. So we have BRICS. In BRICS we have Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. So what these guys, if you can understand just what these individual countries contribute to BRICS, you will understand then, I guess, the criteria or the framework for how other countries are allowed in. And it's all about, what do you bring to the table? No one in that arrangement will say, I am the table. No, you have to bring something to the table. There's a lot of jabs to women today. What's happening? But we love you, queens. We love you, queens. So the contributions: Brazil is an agricultural powerhouse with a growing tech and energy sector. And then there's Russia, which is a key energy supplier, supplying oil and gas, military power, and is a player in geopolitical tensions with the West. We have seen it. I mean, Russia has been at war for the past, I don't know how long, 4 or 5 years. And then there's India, which is a rising digital economy with a massive youth population and a strong service sector. And then there's China, the world's second largest economy and a manufacturing giant, and also a major lender to developing countries. So now China has sort of like taken the position of the IMF within the African continent, within the African borders, because a lot of countries have taken loans from China, of which, would I still call that imperialism? Because now China doesn't. Okay, let's understand that anytime that two countries are going to trade or are going to come to some sort of agreement, there's a mutually beneficial opportunity at stake, that they are trying to leverage and get the best out of. So now China is sort of like the devil that we know, other than the World Bank and the IMF and those institutions. China, as much as they come, they are also looking to strengthen themselves as a country, but they also come with the goal of helping Africa to develop itself. So then it becomes fine. That's imperialism light. That is the imperialism that we can deal with. We can allow that fun. And then there's South Africa, which is the gateway to Africa, with a strong mining, finance, and political influence on the continent. I always say, like, South Africa is don't sleep on South Africa, as much as the country is burning right now. And it bothers me because now I haven't fully understood where everything is going in terms of South Africa and everything that is happening right now. But one thing that I'm going to commend South Africa for is that we always punch above our weight, and we always just find ourselves in spaces that other African countries probably look at and be like, by a pub. And they probably look at us and be like, these ones, they are going to get banned because now they are dealing with Amapos. Yeah, well, because look at that stunt, or it wasn't even a stunt, but look at that initiative by South Africa going to the ICJ and going against Israel and standing up for Palestine. Did it go down that way? I might have my facts wrong, but just that whole ordeal, and then the whole thing of just South Africa also being in BRICS, that's us also punching above our weight. And there's just been so many other instances where South Africa has just been in rooms that we are way too small to be in. Like, what do you mean that our president is sitting with Donald Trump, and just, in fact, running laps around him in terms of statecraft, So, yeah, that's also a spirit that we should also embody as the citizens of South Africa, or rather lately Azania. I don't know where Azania came from and where it's going, but I like the sound of it, but I wouldn't go as far as renaming the country to Azania. But anyway, that is today's term to know from the Foundry Dictionary. I hope that you have gotten something from this episode and that it has at least clued you up, or just you know better now, or at least have clarity, or was stimulated, So if you are new to the channel, please like, subscribe, and watch out for more videos. If you are a regular, I appreciate you. So please do stay tuned. There is definitely more videos on the way. Like, share, and subscribe. And I will see you on the next one. This has been the FNDRY LAB. Until next time.